Hi everyone, this is Coach Rob Hagen and welcome to my channel. In this channel, I interview entrepreneurs and where I ask them to share their stories of how they started and to inspire us to be like them. And for today, I have with us Luis Buenaventura the third. It took three tries, huh, to get it right. Three tries. I wasn't a junior, but my brother was a junior, and I know what a problem that was answering the phone. Okay, quick introduction. So Luis is the co-founder of BloomX. That's how I got to know you. It's a startup that's bringing cryptocurrency trading and modern money services to the developing world. He is the author. That was new to me. I didn't know that. He's the author of the Little Bitcoin book, published in 2019, and Reinventing Remittances with Bitcoin in 2017. He's also the creator of CryptoPop. If you look behind, he's got his artwork there, an NFT art initiative that's making crypto more accessible to the mainstream. For those of you that don't know what NFT means, it's yearly free terrific
Non-fungible token.
income. No. I can't even explain that. But I'm actually an artist too. I'll talk about that later on. Now, this part I really like. In 2017, he co-presented the first Remittance Technology Awards at the United Nations headquarters in New York. More recently, he was cited among the 50 most influential payment professionals at the World Payment Congress, and as one of the 50 game changers shaping Philippines' future by Tatler magazine. And that I believe in. Because almost everything here that you wrote is a game changer. And if there's one thing I pride myself in, it's spotting change. But I spotted this change, in my opinion, a little late, and you spotted it a bit early. This whole crypto world. Unfortunately, for my background's in network marketing, and the first time I was introduced to Bitcoin, the guy goes, "Have you heard of Bitcoin?" And I said, "What's that?" And then he led me to a network marketing company, and I'm an expert at spotting scams. And my first introduction to Bitcoin was through a scam network marketing company, and that cost me time. But you saw it right. Luis, could you tell us how did you find out about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess a little bit more background about myself. But like,
Yeah,
I've been starting various tech businesses in the Philippines since I was 25. So a little over a decade now. Actually, a little bit more than just over a decade. I should be more honest with my age. Um, so I would say that I was kind of in a position to be experimenting with new technologies just by default because of kind of the area of focus that I was in. So, the first couple of startups the first couple of businesses that I founded, they were kind of around social networks. This was kind of late 2000s, no? So this was around the time of the rise of MySpace and then later on Facebook and
right.
all of those guys and
And
Twitter and
well,
things like
I
that.
have to pause you for a second. Your sound just dipped a little bit. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
maybe a little closer to the mic.
Um,
Yeah.
Let me see if I can let me just adjust, and then I'll answer the question again. I'll try to
No,
adjust
no,
my.
the answer is good. Actually,
Okay.
that sound level is okay now. So MySpace era, you're already in fintech.
Well, I wouldn't call it fintech. I mean, it wasn't really fintech. No, it was. I would say that I was always building internet businesses. I guess that was kind of the area of focus that I was very very interested in. How do I create businesses that are specific to the Philippine market but leveraging the internet, kind of full stop.
Okay.
So that's social networks, that's e-commerce, that's fintech, and then obviously that dovetails into cryptocurrency. At least in the last 6 years now, that's kind of how I got into cryptocurrency. So I was already looking for what the next big wave might be, and you said earlier that you think that you got into it a little bit late. I will say that everyone who gets into crypto thinks that they got into it a little bit
Yes.
late because they always wish they had bought a little bit earlier, right? And like even with me, I got in very early 2014.
Holy.
At that time, I really thought that I had bought late because I mean, we were talking about sub $100 prices for Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
we're talking like the year before that, Bitcoin was $20. When I got in, it was kind of in the mid hundreds. And obviously, like it sounds like I'm quibbling right now because Bitcoin is at nearly $60,000. But I mean, it's hard to like. The hindsight is very, very
Yeah.
clear, and forecasting the success of something as ambitious as a decentralized currency, the likes of which the world has never seen before, kind of intuitively knowing that that is going to have legs. Like, it's not just belief, it's almost like faith, because you could be wrong on there's so many contributing factors to the success of a technology, and like, in order to genuinely believe that making an investment in this technology, whatever it is, no, whether it's Bitcoin or the internet or social networks or whatever, parang like some of it almost feels like faith sometimes, because it's not necessarily what you understand from reading the code. It's not necessarily what you understand from analyzing the technical markets or the technical fundamentals of an asset. Some of it's faith. And a lot of Bitcoiners from back then, they decided that it was not going to be the thing for them. They quit before all of these, big occurrences in the last few years. So it's gotta. I would say that, like, and it sounds very weird for a technology person like me to be calling it like faith, but that's honestly, some of it is an emotional. You have to make an emotional leap that is, no, that you can't necessarily explain. And that was kind of, so I will say that I was fortunate that I kind of stuck with it. But there were many, many times in the last 6, 7 years where I really had issues with kind of like whether or not this was the right call. I mean, as you probably know, Bitcoin has not been a straight shot to
No.
60,000. Far from it, no? Far from it. We have what we call crypto winters, where the market just goes cold. And when it goes cold, it goes like bone cold.
Yeah.
And we lose 80% of our price. And it's not just, so me personally, I feel like I can take it emotionally if I lose 80% of an investment. But what pains me the most is all of those friends and family that I influenced to get in during a time when the price is high, and then they watch their money, their value erode over the next year. No, so that's painful, and that's the kind of parang existential pain that it will really cause you to rethink whether or not this is the right move or not. Now, granted, we are in a crypto summer right now, so everyone is happy again. We're all friends. So like, when I see my friends and I see my family and we talk about Bitcoin, everyone is in a good mood now. Let's just say it wasn't the case in 2018.
No.
So
No.
but
No.
yeah, it's a funny experience.
Actually, now it's nice because we can out ourselves. For the longest
Mm.
time, we had to kind of be underground because it wasn't looked highly upon.
Yes. Yes.
You had to do it in secret, not just individuals, but corporations who kind of
Yep.
knew, but you couldn't say because then you were accused of being
Yep.
either a drug runner or a blackmailer or a
Yeah. Money
money
launderer.
launderer. But if there's one thing I've been able to do is to see trends, and I saw the trend. I understood what was
Mhm.
happening. Um, but when I saw it the first time, the run up, I think I saw it about $700, and I saw it go to 20,000. I wasn't in,
Yeah.
and that's a classic bubble. That's a real
Mm.
classic bubble, and I spot bubbles really well. And quite frankly, it was.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was.
It was.
It was a speculation bubble, and the adoption wasn't there. But then it dropped, and then it didn't go to zero. And then the narrative changed from currency to digital gold. And then I said, oh, wait a minute, that's different. But how did, anyway, so that's about me, but I want to talk more about you. But so that's when I came in. But when you came in sub 100, what was Bitcoin like back then? I mean, were people spending it? Were people thinking to hold it? I know people who were just giving it away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so yeah, so in its infancy, $100 Bitcoin, that is the kind of thing that you give away,
Yeah,
right? Because you're trying to get people to use it. You're trying to
yeah,
get people to hold it, etc. Buy coffee with it, stuff like that. So, one of the first few initiatives here in the Philippines was to turn this stuff into a payments mechanism. And back then, you could actually use Bitcoin to pay for stuff. So, a couple of coffee shops in Makati, I believe Yardstick was one of the first ones, on Palanca. Yardstick was accepting Bitcoin as payment for cups of coffee. And, I mean, it was an interesting little proof of concept, but, ultimately, if you really believed that Bitcoin was going to be very valuable, it was unlikely that you were going to spend it on a consumable, right? Like, you were more likely to use it to I would say, to acquire a even longer term investment. So, for example, you would be thinking about it in terms of maybe this Bitcoin is eventually going to be enough to buy me a house or a small plot of land or maybe a condo in Makati or something like that. No? So you're thinking along those lines. You're not thinking about it in terms of, hey, it's pretty cool that I use my Bitcoin wallet to buy a 100 peso cup of coffee. So I think very early on palang, and this was 2014 to 2015, it was kind of proven pretty clearly the people were not going to be using Bitcoin as a payments mechanism unless they absolutely had no other choice. And those types of people, those are kind of generally the people who were excluded from financial services in the first place. So if you're the kind of person who cannot buy a plane ticket because you don't have a credit card, for
Yeah.
example, then you can go to cheapair.com even to this day and use Bitcoin to pay for it. And there are, you'd be surprised how many people there are in the world who kind of have that problem. So it was solving a problem for people who were excluded. But if you were, kind of an average middle class person, even in the Philippines, if you had a debit card at the very least, it probably wasn't going to give you a significant, advantage. Because you could already do these types of payments in the first place. The one thing you don't have as a Filipino is access to a currency that does not lose value over time. And Bitcoin eventually proved itself to be the thing that you could invest your money in, and it became a savings mechanism rather than a payment mechanism. Yeah, so that's kind of the narrative shifted a lot, no? From 2014 to now, it shifted a lot. It was basically kind of looking for the most appropriate solution that it could contribute to. And when you said digital gold, that seems to be the narrative that is catching on because it's a very easy thing to understand. That we know that gold is a good store of value because it's proven that over the last 6,000 years that humanity has used it as a store of value. And if you say that Bitcoin is the digital alternative to gold, your first job is to A, prove it, and then B, give show us the kind of how it is actually better than gold. So it's a very interesting to watch how society is starting to kind of change its perception about these things.
I'm surprised that you're telling me as early as 2014 it already had that store of value narrative. Because I didn't hear that until about 2018.
Yeah, I mean so there's a couple of different ways kasi that people talk about Bitcoin. So the first is a way to pay, a way to store, and then I guess parang I would say as a tertiary function, it's also a way to transfer funds to other people around the world. No, and that's the other narrative that really took hold back in the early days was that you could use Bitcoin as a parang a remittance instrument.
Right.
Which is kind of the reason why the first version of Bloom of my company, our first product was a remittance product that was built on top of Bitcoin. So you could use it as a way to accept a remittance from overseas, maybe ideally, kind of reduce the costs of remittance, things like that. Again, this was very early days in the Bitcoin network, in the Bitcoin network's life. I don't think you can realistically use Bitcoin as a remittance instrument these days because of how expensive the network fees have become.
Yeah.
Because the network is very, very active now. But back then, the network was only moderately active, so we could ride on it with very, very cheap fees and transfer funds that way. And it was a pretty good way to power a remittance platform, the way that Bloom was doing back in those
How long
days.
would it take for a Bitcoin to transaction to go through? I heard it
Oh
sometimes
well. I mean, back then, it was a 10-minute transaction is the standard, right? And you can still get a 10-minute transaction in the Bitcoin network now. The problem is that you'll have to pay so much money for it. So the timing is not what's changed. The timing is that the amount you have to pay in order to hit that next block is so much higher now. And back then we were paying cents, like you know, maybe 10 pesos per transaction, and now it's more like, you know, yeah, 20 times that,
What,
something like
like
that.
what kind of amounts of Bitcoin were people transferring?
Oh, well, on any given day, Bloom was doing, if I look back
Yeah,
at those days, we were doing 60 to 100 Bitcoin a day in transfer. And, you know, if you think about that right now,
no,
that's a mind-boggling amount of
yeah.
money to be churning on a daily basis. But it wasn't worth a lot back then, so it's pretty
No,
funny.
no,
Yeah.
no. I mean, like I said, I have friends who bought Bitcoin at 100 and sold it at 300 or 400 and
Right.
thought they made a killing. You know,
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people they used it to buy things, and I mean, for the vision that you guys had to really hang on to it, or was it
Mhm.
luck, or did you really have the vision? Just a little bit about Bitcoin, then I want to talk about the business side. But did you have the
Yeah.
vision, or was it luck?
People always downplay how much luck plays into their success, and the first thing I should say that I don't consider Bloom to be a massively successful company. I know that we're on the right path
Yeah,
for sure, and I know that if we stick with this path, then we will eventually be, parang by my own personal definition, a very successful company. Um, I will say that some of it was definitely luck. But then I guess it's also neutralized by bad luck. You know, when you're starting a business in uncertain territory, so it doesn't get more uncertain than cryptocurrency. Because if you remember 2014 to 2016, um, you know, Bitcoin, any kind of Bitcoin trading in this country was technically black market trading because there was no regulation for it. The Philippine government didn't recognize it as an asset or as a commodity or any of those things. And thus, if you were a business and you were trading this stuff as part of your business, then you are part of the black market. So super uncertain times, right? I mean, we didn't know if we were going to get shut down. The Banco Central was aware of us, and we had opened up dialogues with the Banco Central even early on. But because there was no regulatory framework back then, if you wanted to follow the letter of the law, technically it was illegal. Eventually, they did have licensing. So, come 2017, we got our license. A lot of this stuff got clarified. But yeah, it's super. I mean, Bitcoin itself is a very volatile asset just because of the price. Building a business on top of Bitcoin is also an incredibly volatile experience because like sometimes you don't know if it's like a bank is gonna shut me down. Is the
yeah,
government gonna shut me down? Am I going to is the technology that I rely on, Bitcoin itself, is it eventually going to be proven to be as stable as I think it will be, or will I don't know, will some amazing hacker find a way to break Bitcoin, in which case your whole business crumbles,
yeah.
right? So parang there's so many unknown factors to it. So I will say that yeah, we were fortunate, and we were I guess I mean, we worked our asses off. I'll say that, but we were certainly also fortunate that till this point, it seems like we were proven correct naman
Yeah,
na,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
that Bitcoin was the stable currency that we were hoping it was, the stable technology, I should say, that we were hoping it was going to be.
We'll talk about the other things that you guys are doing a little down the road, but I want to backtrack a little bit. I mean, because I remember when I was starting out and just trying to buy cryptocurrency, if a bank knew that you were actually buying, they would not suspend, hold. What do you call it?
Freeze. Sometimes they freeze you. They will freeze your
Freeze
account
the bank
sometimes.
account
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because it was synonymous with money laundering, but it wasn't, right? But
Yeah.
that's why the fact that you were able to build a business in an environment like this, even just saying the word, you get this look, right? You get this look when you even mention the word. You know,
Right.
people look at you
Right.
and say like, you get that
Right.
look.
Right.
So I'm really impressed that you actually built a business when there was so much prejudice,
Mm.
on the
Mm.
underlying technology and the underlying product.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or how could you actually build when even just the whole idea of your product was like a pariah to people? That's a lot to overcome.
It is. It was. It was. I will say that the original product of Bloom, and I'll backtrack a little bit now. So the original product of Bloom was we called it Bloom Remit, which is essentially what it sounds like. No, so it is a way for people to benefit from Bitcoin as a remittance mechanism. So because of that, we were able to get a little bit more leeway, no? Because the mission of the product was so obviously around helping support our OFWs, our migrant workers, helping reduce the cost of remittances. We all know that the Philippines GDP is very, very dependent on remittances. It's about 10% of the country's GDP on any given year is just remittances from overseas. So if you say that the mission of your company is to reduce the costs of those remittances coming in, then you sometimes get a little bit more leeway to, to try things. And I will say that parang the central bank the Banco Central was more tolerant of us, primarily because of that. That we were so focused on trying to make remittances cheaper that it almost felt wrong to try to stifle that innovation. No? So because we were focusing very much on that, we weren't focusing too much on parang Bitcoin purely as a trading thing. Then we were able to kind of subsist for the next few years, even if no regulatory framework existed that could make us legit in the eyes of the government.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how we kind of maneuvered that landscape.
Now I want to talk about crypto winter because this was majority of
Yeah.
my experience was crypto winter. I
Mhm.
came in, I think early 20. When was crypto winter? Right after December 2017. No?
Yeah, well, so February of 2018 was when it really hit. Because
Yeah.
like January, we were still about $16,000 in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. I was praying. I was praying. Being on the outside and seeing the price go up, right? And you're just praying. What did I do? I missed it. I made a mistake. And then when it dropped down, say, I knew it. I was right. It's a bubble. It's going to zero, right? And then when it hit 4,000, for me, in my experience, and then it was staying flat. And then I was saying, okay, this is going to go to zero. And then when it hit 5,000, I go, oh, it's going back up. Okay, I'm wrong. Better go in now. So
Yeah.
that's when I started. And then yeah, my mistake.
$5,000 was a very good time to get in.
It was,
You
but
know.
I didn't know anything. I mean, here was my mistake, Luis. When I decided, okay, I'm in. How? You know what I mean? I didn't know how. I should have been studying the how, and I didn't know anything. So when I made the decision, that's when I asked how. And speaking of how, this is a good time to plug your BloomX on Facebook.
Sure.
So if people want to purchase Bitcoin, how can
Yep.
they do it? And other cryptocurrencies?
Yeah. Well, so our newest product, so this is our 2020 product. It's called BloomX.app. You can actually see the front page right there. So what it is an easy way for any Filipino to trade their pesos, maybe from their GCash wallet, from their PayMaya wallet, from their Union Bank account. They'll be able to trade it directly into any of 250 different cryptocurrencies. Of course, Bitcoin being the primary one that we expect people will use, but we've got the whole suite. The website itself is very, very young. We only started, we only launched it really about 2 weeks ago. So we're still in waitlist mode.
Yeah.
And what we want is, for people to indicate their interest, and then we'll just kind of approve them in batches. And that's partially for our own comfort level also, because we want to make sure that the app is as secure and as reliable and stable as possible before we really, really open the floodgates. But yeah, it's up now. You can jump on anytime. And the whole point is to provide the cheapest way for Pinoys to get into cryptocurrency.
No, I love it.
In,
For most, because right now it's coins.ph,
right.
wherein you only have four, right? So it's not
Yeah.
going to be that much concentrate. That's why when you said 250, I messaged you, I forgot my number. I think I'm waitlisted number
I think
731.
I could probably find a way to bump you up.
Are you going to have your own trading coin like all the other exchanges?
Probably not. We're a fan of being a bridge. We like the idea of being enablers rather than necessarily kind of the thing that you focus on. No? And I will tell you the one piece of magic about BloomX, the reason why we are able to support 250 different cryptocurrencies is because we partnered with Binance in
Yeah.
order to build this. Now, Binance.com is the leading exchange in the world. No, they don't have a formal Philippine presence. This is where the licensing and regulation question comes in again. They don't even have an operating business entity in the Philippines kasi. So in order for them to offer any kind of service to Filipinos, they have to have a licensed partner. So that's Bloom. I guess I'll say that unofficially. And the BloomX app is kind of the the result of that partnership. So now Pinoys can have a very direct way to essentially trade on Binance because what you're looking at here, it's a pretty interface that has Philippine peso on it, but underneath that, it's Binance technology. So it's as if you actually are trading on Binance itself, and that's why the prices are so good because we're directly connecting you with what we call the order book exchange of Binance, and they're
Okay.
deep volume and deep liquidity.
Would you have savings and staking products also on your app?
So we will probably do that in a secondary phase. I think the most important thing for us right now is to make sure that people can gain exposure into cryptocurrency in
Yeah.
the cheapest way possible. That's step one for us. And eventually, all of the other services that Binance offers will eventually kind of put it in. But all of these things need to happen in phases. You'll end up with a very, very messy spaghetti kind of product because if there's too many
Mm.
options.
Yeah.
And honestly, like 250 cryptos is already a lot of
Yeah.
options for the average person. No?
Yeah, and you were very specific that this is really for beginners. And actually, it's good to have an
Yeah.
intermediary because if you start straight with Binance, it's quite overwhelming, with all the
It's massive.
yeah. And but the
Yeah.
more you use it, you realize this is all good. But for a
Hmm.
beginner, and part of what I do is I teach people how to start. Um, we all start with Bitcoin, but then we want to move somewhere else after that, right?
Yep.
A friend of
Yep.
mine, Happy Del Rosario, showed me rankings of where you are in crypto. You bought Bitcoin, you're aware of Ethereum, and then you're buying,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then you're staking, and now you're in Texas. And I was like, it's like 1 to 12, and I think I was in number 14 or 15 already. It's such a rabbit hole to go down.
Right.
And
Yeah, for
and the
sure.
NFTs now, no?
Hmm.
And I was looking at your gallery, your
Yeah.
crypto. I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that you've been making artwork, and the world is becoming aware of NFTs now. But I've
Yeah.
been
Yep.
doing your digital art for quite a while.
Yeah. 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 I actually a little bit more background on me. I actually went to art school. I'm from UP Fine Arts. That's where I graduated.
Oh,
And so like my background has always been art. It's just that I would say I took a very very heavy detour into technology in my 20s and 30s. And kind of when I started to get very much into the cryptocurrency thing because of my company, I found that there was also a very small but growing movement of artists that were creating art just to talk about this stuff, no? In commentary of crypto. And, I found that like two of my great loves, cryptocurrency and art, had kind of somehow found themselves together in a single thing. So I started like really pouring maybe some of my evenings and my weekends into doing these bits of artwork. This thing in the background here, this is a long piece that I created a couple of months back. It's called Bitcoin: A Visual History, and it's a parang an artist's depiction of the various events in the early days of Bitcoin. So this is part two of a three-parter. I haven't done part three yet. I'm still working on it. It takes a good 3 to 4 months to complete the whole thing because, well, I mean, it's not my full-time job. But what I've found is that there is definitely an audience for this stuff. And even if I never become a full-time artist, I mean, obviously my great love continues to be with making crypto itself accessible to the average
yeah.
Filipino, and
Thank you.
I need to be part of the product of Bloom in order to do that. Um, but yeah, I find that there's enough of an audience for this stuff who are willing to pay for it, that if you wanted to, you could probably make a decent living um, just being a crypto artist. I've actually, part of my personal advocacy now is just talking to local artists
Yeah.
about this stuff and just explaining to them how to, kind of what the steps are if you wanted to start selling your art this way.
You know what, Luis? If you could have a step by step, I know a lot of people are asking already.
Okay.
A lot are asking.
Okay.
And I didn't know
Okay.
I'm actually UP also, UP Film. I'm a UP Film.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
cool.
were in the same college. Um,
Nice.
no, definitely, definitely. And see, when I was in college, I was actually a comic strip creator. I was a published cartoonist.
Ah,
I gave it
I
up
see.
because I couldn't make any money. But I see such a
Right.
opportunity for artists now to be able to sell their work all over the world. No, and
Yes.
the
Yeah.
game changer, what Mark Cuban said, the game changer with NFT is royalty, right?
Yes.
So when they
For
resell
sure.
and resell and resell, you still get your commission.
Yeah. Yeah, it's automatic too, which is there's no version of that in the real world.
Yeah,
Na ano, as soon as your artwork is resold, that you'll get 10%. There's no automatic royalties in the real world. So this is unique to crypto art. But yeah, so I'm always floored whenever I wake up in the morning and I have a little royalty payment. It's usually in Ethereum or something
I
like
want
that,
to be
right?
floored.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful that like that there is now a community around this stuff, no? And like who would have thought that no that the one of the main the one of the main places that would benefit from cryptocurrency is the art world.
I didn't see
Like
it coming.
yeah,
I
most
didn't
people
see it coming.
I didn't see that coming either. I was very surprised that that was the case.
Even for me, Michael Saylor changed the game with Bitcoin. Before that, for me, I was looking at this as a digital gold,
Mhm.
definitely. I saw when the narrative changed, and then Bitcoin started to follow gold in all the graphs, and then it had the divergence, no? And now
Mhm.
it's kicking gold past, right?
Yeah.
And can you share in your perspective, because you have a long history, what changed last year in terms of cryptocurrency that brought it to the mainstream or brought it to the forefront of the consciousness of society?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of people will point to Michael Saylor nga as kind of the trigger, no? But I don't actually think that. So I think it was many things,
Yeah,
and I think that it was starting to get to the point where it was becoming inevitable. And one of the reasons, very ironically, was the pandemic and the way that the U.S. Federal Reserve reacted to the pandemic. So, if we back up a little bit, no. So when the lockdown hit, the U.S. economy started to really tank, like in a really, really big way, no. And they were fearing the next great financial crisis. So the Federal Reserve came in. They said, what we are going to do is we're going to print a lot of dollars, and we are going to make loans super cheap. We're going to give everyone credit so that they can borrow money, get themselves back on their feet, buy stuff, upgrade their homes, whatever, keep those businesses afloat. Now, that doesn't sound like a bad thing necessarily, at least the way I've just said it. But what they actually ended up doing was they printed about $9 trillion. So if you don't know how big $9 trillion is, that is about 20% more than all of the dollars that currently existed at the time. So that means that they inflated the supply of dollars by 20%, not just in the States. That has global effects because people buy merchandise overseas using dollars. People, have that's the currency of international trade. So if you can just like unilaterally, arbitrarily add 20% to the total market cap of dollars in that way, then the value of your dollars is very questionable. No, so like it means that like what is my dollar actually buying me now if you can just add more bills where no value existed to back up those bills. So para people like maybe the Fortune 500 CEOs like Michael Saylor, they were looking at this situation and they were like, long term, it does not make sense for us to keep our treasuries in dollars because the value of dollars is inevitably going to erode because you guys keep printing more of them. and just no, adding zeros to the ends of kind of your total monetary supply. It can't work that way. Any kind of armchair economist will know that is not sustainable long term. But the U.S. government has been doing it for the last 30 years. Now, so I think that was actually a bigger trigger because what Michael Saylor did with MicroStrategy, where he announced that $600 million buy into Bitcoin, he was protecting his company because he needed to buy in to an asset that he felt would not be inflated the way that the dollar was currently being inflated. So that was defensive. I would argue that it wasn't actually like if the U.S. economy were in better shape, he might not have done it. To be honest, like it was a reactive move. Now, that being said, it sent shockwaves across the not just the United States but throughout the world. So now every CEO who is worried about inflation has suddenly got an economics lesson from Michael Saylor and Bitcoin and all of that stuff. And kind of it's triggered a lot of these other companies to kind of do the same thing. Tesla, very famously, just a couple months back, bought in for like $1.5 billion. Now, those were the triggers at the top, no? So these are institutional triggers because the kind of people who look at news like that, they're CEOs or very wealthy people who have a lot of money to throw around. No? They're worried about how their balance sheets or their personal portfolios are going to be affected by the inflationary dollar. Now, on the grassroots level naman, there was another thing going on that was very unrelated to all of that stuff. A couple of different things: blockchain gaming, crypto art, um, the idea of having stable coins that had very specific use cases in specific regions of the world. There are all of these kind of grassroots efforts that were happening in all a bunch of different places. And I think it just so happened that it all came to a head in 2020 because everyone was stuck at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So parang the lockdown itself contributed to the growth of a lot of this stuff because suddenly we were in a situation where you could no longer say that it's easier for me to take pesos out of my wallet and hand it to someone in a store because you can't go to the store anymore
Yeah.
or you can't go to a restaurant anymore. So all of these situations have suddenly kind of worked together to make it so that the benefits of cryptocurrency have suddenly become a lot more pronounced. So parang the inflationary dollar, the fact that we can't travel, the fact that if you are any kind of artist, you can no longer do galleries or events. People who used to hang out at each other's homes in order to play PlayStation, you can't do that anymore. So everyone is suddenly playing online. All of these things, kind of all contributing to that. And like it or not, this is the world that we're living in right now. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like the lockdown is going to lift anytime
Yeah.
soon. It seems like Manila is back in under some kind of lockdown now. So it's gonna keep parang hammering away at the infrastructure that we currently have, and it's gonna constantly challenge the infrastructure that we have. And people are gonna start looking more and more at alternatives like crypto as a way to do all of these other things that they might need. No, and I think that's kind of this is it. This is the reality that we're living in, and that translates to crypto summer, the way that we kind of have referred to it in the past. Na parang
Yeah.
this is when crypto markets are the hottest.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, but
So
it's a
nice.
reaction to how dire the situation became in
Yeah.
2020. That's what I think was actually happening there.
Yeah. Being in crypto winter, it's like, okay, buy the dip, bought it. Dip some more,
Yeah.
buy it. Dip some more, buy it. Dip some more, buy it. The only thing going up was Chainlink, and that was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
it's like everything's going up, and that's like, where do I put? Where do I put? I really like talking to you. I have so many questions. Mark Cuban was saying in the start of the pandemic that there are going to be certain industries that emerge from this, and he
Yes.
said it at the start of the pandemic, and then recently he said, "Well, I know what emerged, and it was DeFi, right?
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
decentralized finance,
Sure.
and I've really seen the growth of companies like Aave and Yearn Finance, and even just Binance, or
Yeah.
even stable coins, right? I didn't realize, it is part of me being, I guess, ignorant of the fact that banking is not accessible to majority of Filipinos.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
the biggest bank now is GCash or PayMaya, right?
Well, I would say that I think Gcash for sure has the most number of online transactions, without a doubt. No?
Yeah.
So I believe they just celebrated their 1 trillionth peso transacted a couple of weeks back lang. So it's a very kind of a recent milestone for them.
Wow.
But yeah. So only about 20% of Filipino adults have bank accounts. Which is why, if you look at our employment status, about 60% of people who are employed in the Philippines are actually informally employed, meaning that they don't have job contracts, they don't have social security, they don't have benefits. It's like they show up for work, and then at the end of the day, they have pesos in their pocket. And those are the people who are most hard hit by things like the lockdown because you can't show up for work and you can't even accept any kind of payments or sustained or whatever kind of uh, benefits your employer might be willing to give you. You can't even accept it because you don't have a bank account. So they go to Gcash. What other choice do they have, right? So Gcash again was kind of one of the main places that allowed these people to survive. And then also to a lesser extent, I guess some of the other things we were talking about, yield farming in DeFi, blockchain gaming. It's like, who would have thought that these would be the drivers? But they are. They
Um,
are now the drivers for growth for the crypto scene.
it, it's moving so fast,
Oh
moving
yeah.
so fast.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, I just wanted to buy a Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden, yield farming on DeFi finance cake. It's okay. How did I get here? How did I get here? Okay, some questions. How do I ask it? Super cycle or 4 year cycle? Will you sell at the peak at this year, or are you going to huddle through and see where it goes?
Me personally. Oh, okay. So yeah. So let me give you my personal portfolio ratio looks like na lang.
Oh, you're right.
Obviously
Okay.
I won't put real numbers on anything, but I'll just
Okay.
give you the ratio.
Ratio
So
stuff.
I am 90% Bitcoin and
Wow.
10% Ether, and that's it. That's all I got. That's all I got.
Really?
Now, so a couple of notes about why that is the case. Um, I was 100% Bitcoin as far back as 2017. Um, and when I say 2017, I don't mean the $20,000 high. I mean January of that year. So it was like a $1,000 Bitcoin. So I was, I was nearly just 100% Bitcoin all the time. The reason why I even have Ethereum. So I've never actually bought Ethereum. The only reason why I even have Ethereum is because of the art sales.
Yeah.
Because that's how people pay in the
Yeah.
crypto art world. No, they pay you with Ethereum. So I ended up with some Ethereum, and I was like, well, I mean, okay, I'm gonna hold it. I mean, why not, right? I mean, if I can, I mean, it seemed like Ethereum has at least the same kind of growth potential, not
Mm.
necessarily the market cap, no, but like just growth potential as Bitcoin for this year. For this year. So I'm like, okay, well, might as well hold it. So what's happening for me right now is that I consider Ethereum my spending crypto,
Sure.
meaning that if I need to pay credit card bills, the rent for our place here, I'll liquidate Ethereum. I will probably never liquidate my Bitcoin. Um, I mean, I'm kind of one of those people, one of those very annoying people who will sell everything else they have rather than liquidate their Bitcoin. Um,
Now, well,
but I'm
I
not.
kind of, if you talk to my wife, I'm the same. I go, everything else, just don't touch my BTC. No, I don't need
Yeah, well,
anything
because
else.
well, because ano, parang this is like the ultimate EQ money. No, parang if you have high EQ and you are willing to be patient and persevere, you are going to be rewarded for it. And we've seen it time and time again. Eh. Like when I got into Bitcoin in 2014, the lowest Bitcoin price I saw was $180.
Oh,
So like insane, right? I mean, obviously, like I should have gone in 2014, but like, who can tell about these things? If it was my first 6 months in crypto, and Bitcoin tanked about 70% in about 3 days, and it hit $180 low, and I was like, oh my god, should I just quit? Cause like, is this even worth sticking around for? No, I mean, obviously vindicated now, but
Yeah.
back then it was very scary and it was very hard to tell. It's like parang seeing market action like that, very frightening for a first timer. But then, syempre, it also kind of set up the next 6 years of emotional roller coasters for me, because it was never as bad as that again.
Yeah.
It was like, that was possibly the worst I ever saw.
Wow.
And like ano, yun, diba? So those kinds of market movements, it shakes the crap out of you. But now that you know na ganun talaga siya, and it really scares the bejesus out of people, you are a little bit more perseverant when you say, no, I'm just gonna hold it, right? And I'm not gonna be affected by these massive drops. You haven't really had a massive drop in a long time, by the way. Like,
Oh
it's been
yeah,
at
but
least
in
6 months since the
March
last
was
big one.
listed, but that's understandable. Okay,
You
so
get like these
this
little
question
ones.
was
Yeah.
posed to Michael Saylor by Ben of Bitboy. Do you lend your Bitcoin out for the 5% APY, or do you just keep it in a cold storage?
Yeah,
Cold
I'm
storage.
I'm very a traditionalist when it
And
comes to my Bitcoin. The reason why I don't lend it out is because the 5% gain is quite small. We're talking APY now, so on an annual return basis, 5% extra. It's actually quite small when you compare it to the likelihood that the place that you are lending it to is not going to hit some kind of technological or regulatory or whatever kind of challenge where they're not going to be able to give you back your bitcoins. So parang my thing about this is I think I'll just hold it, mostly because the growth potential of Bitcoin far exceeds that 5%
you're not, yeah.
APY anyway. So parang you're quibbling over single digit percentages where the growth potential is, kind of significantly more. Now we're talking like hundreds of percent. So parang like it's fine. I think I'll just hold it. But like I said, I'm a little bit more frivolous when it comes to how I use my Ethereum, because it's money that I earned there. So I was like, okay, fine. It's like I'll be more with that one.
Okay.
So I can put it in. I can park it in some DeFi projects if I want.
For
Or
cold
whatever.
storage, Ledger or Trezor?
I don't really have a preference. Either of them is good. Like in Bloom, our company issued ones are always ledgers because we need to be pare-pareho.
Mm,
But like it's actually fine. If you were to ask me which one I think the coolest one is, there is a project called Cold Card, built by a friend of mine, a Canadian. This is a Rodolfo Novak's company. So I like these guys are the nerdiest of the nerds, an engineer's engineer. So I really like their products. It's very tricky to use, but I really like the how much thought was put into it. So those are like personal preferences, but I think that if you were a first timer and you wanted to secure your crypto with a hardware wallet, you can't go wrong with either Ledger or Trezor. My only recommendation is you buy it from a reputable source. If possible, buy it direct from the manufacturer. Obviously, don't buy it on Lazada. Don't buy it in the marketplace, because like they can do some crazy things with your hardware wallets before they ship it to you. So yeah, don't risk it. Even if it looks like you're getting a better deal. Actually, especially if it looks like you're getting a better deal, because there's very likely going to be a catch to that. So don't try it. Don't try it.
For
Just
those
buy
who are
directly.
not in crypto, no, there's a thing called the seed phrase, which is about 12
Yes.
words,
Mhm.
which is like your password. And anytime you're asked to give your seed phrase, that's like your PIN number for your ATM account. Just never give it. Just because
Yes.
I know some people who did and they lost everything.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a terrible thing to have to explain to them. We've had a few customers come back to us kasi and say, "Hey, parang my Bitcoin wallet is empty. Remember when I bought one Bitcoin from you guys? My Bitcoin wallet's empty now. Can you help me figure out what's going on?" And
Yeah.
then we uncovered that it was because his ledger was hacked somehow. Anyway, so yeah, the problem with this stuff really is that, and this is one of the reasons why I try to be careful with how visible I am online. I mean, obviously, I cannot help but be visible because
Yeah,
I'm trying to promote my company. But like you're constantly going to be under some kind of attack, right? If you are a target, if people know that you're probably sitting on a significant amount of Bitcoin, you are going to be a target for this stuff. So be careful, be careful, be cautious. And if you are not sure about something, try to get someone else's opinion before clicking that confirm button.
good advice.
So, yeah.
Good advice. Yeah. Yeah, no, I saw a lot of crypto influencers saying that that's really one danger of being a crypto influencer. You're always
Yeah.
going to be subject to attack.
Yeah.
Okay. Cardano, Polkadot. Any preference?
Um, I will say that Charles Hoskinson really scares me. There's something
Yeah.
about that person. I find him very, I don't know. The history kasi of Cardano, the history of Charles Hoskinson, I should say, the founder of Cardano, he was ex Ethereum Foundation, no, and he left, and it was not amicable. So part of the history of Cardano is kind of, I guess, colored by the fact that it feels to me, I mean, the way I always viewed it, it feels like a revenge product. Because he was trying to get back at the Ethereum guys, so basically doing Ethereum better, no? So that was kind of what I feel like is going on there. I cannot tell you, as a technologist, I cannot tell you if Cardano is actually doing it better. I can tell you that most of the smartest engineers that I know still prefer Ethereum. Um, but I can tell you that Cardano does all sorts of really interesting, creative, maybe slightly strange business practices where they will actually pay Ethereum developers to rewrite their product for Cardano
Cardano.
and then kill their product in the Ethereum blockchain. Parang they will actually go to those extent. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a cutthroat business world, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really know either way, but I'll be honest about this. My familiarity with the other altcoins is quite low because I have a hard time just catching up with just what's going on with Ethereum and Bitcoin. To be honest, like
No,
so
yeah,
much stuff,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
But Cardano is. I mean, I've personally stayed away from it, but like I can't deny that the charts are going crazy on that thing right now. Even if you had only come in the last couple of months, no, like you were
Genuine.
yeah, pretty pretty well rewarded already.
Yeah, genuine.
Yeah. So yeah, but I can't tell you much beyond what I know of its legacy, of its history. I mean,
Two more questions. Basically, one, what are the trends that you see coming up in the Philippines specifically for crypto? And then the last one will be just advice for entrepreneurs, especially
okay.
entrepreneurs in the crypto world who still face a
Mm.
lot of this, that space.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's do the Philippine the trends first. So I think that there's some obvious ones that like things like parang we'll eventually see more and more high net worth individuals, maybe family offices, making Bitcoin investments. That part's obvious because you know, generally speaking, the Philippine business parang landscape tends to track the U.S. business landscape. It's just late by maybe a year. So I think that's inevitable. It's already happening right now. In fact, a lot of our kind of the earliest meetings that Bloom was having in January were all kind of high net worth individuals or family offices, representatives of family offices, trying to decide how they were going to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And I was like, okay, yeah, we were expecting this. So we were kind of prepared for it. The thing that I am most excited about, I mean, obviously I'm excited about that, not because I just think it's a good idea. The more people buy into this stuff, the better. The thing I'm most excited about is kind of on the grassroots level. So kind of I would say the low income bracket. No? So these are my kids in their early 20s that either lost their jobs during the lockdown or maybe they were never employed yet. And they're starting to explore things like blockchain gaming as a way for them to earn money. Games like Axie Infinity, where you earn crypto tokens as you play it, to the tune of the equivalent of about 400 to 800 pesos a day if you play it 1 to 2 hours a day. And that is greater than minimum wage in this country. So what do I make of that trend? So I can tell you that based on the data that we've seen, at least there are at least somewhere between 7 to 10,000 Filipinos that are playing Axie Infinity specifically on a day-to-day basis right now. So that part we know from kind of just market statistics. So we know that already. Are they all earning 400 to 800 pesos a day? I'm not sure, but one of BloomX's our BloomX app, one of its most primary goals is to help them liquidate their tokens quickly into pesos for the lowest fees possible, get it into their GCash account, get it into their Paymaya account, so that they can walk to the supermarket and buy groceries or pay their cell phone bills or things like that. No, so these are going to be very low cap kind of transactions, a few thousand pesos here and there. But to me, that is more interesting than maybe the high net worth individuals, although obviously that's more lucrative. It's more interesting because it is solving a problem that is a little bit more unique to the Philippines, I guess. We have a lot of youth. Our population is 60% below 18, right? So it's kind of very young population. And we have a lot of people who like playing games. We're a very social culture. We love watching people play games on YouTube, Twitch, and things like that. And I'm very hopeful that this will turn into a real thing here. No? So of those 10,000 people, I'm hoping that some of them become BloomX customers, and then they can kind of take their earnings from that game, turn it into peso, and spend it on their usual daily expenses, things like that. So I'm most excited about that because it feels like these are the types of stories that I really like because it's very grassroots, and I feel like decentralized movements necessarily have to be grassroots at some level because that's how you get to mainstream adoption. It's like with these very, very focused niche use cases. So that's a trend that I'm very excited for, and it's certainly like if you ask your average parang Axie Infinity player here in the Philippines, they think that it is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to them because they can finally make some money playing the games that they want to play, which is kind of a first,
Yeah,
strangely enough.
I had no idea until you mentioned it. So now when parents say, "Ayan, computer mo," that's the
There you go.
usually.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can actually contribute to the electricity bill of your home because your computer is always on, right? So there you go. So meron ng, I feel like it's there's something here, and I like again I like these marriages of crypto and something else because it means that people are getting into crypto not just for the sake of crypto itself,
Yeah,
which is kind of the narrative of the previous years. You get into Bitcoin because you believe that Bitcoin is the best way to store your wealth, right? Maybe there's other doors. Maybe there are other entrance ways into this stuff, and gaming is one, art is another. Things like that, no DeFi, yield farming. These are not necessarily crypto for crypto's sake. There's other things going on here. So that's what I'm hoping for. Other use cases, and certainly that one's a very powerful one because it's getting people out of kind of the economic doldrums that they find themselves
yeah,
in because of the lockdown. Um, every little bit helps, and honestly, man, like anything that can produce minimum wage equivalent earnings, that's nothing to scoff at,
yeah.
right?
No, I mean,
Because
I teach people to sell toothpaste, deodorant, and
yeah,
newskin products online. And
yeah,
that
yeah,
they earn very, very well. So again,
yeah.
marrying technology and we have available. It really shows that we're so early with crypto. No, it's changing the world in ways we didn't see.
I am humbled on a daily, weekly basis about how much I don't even know, right? And I'm always surprised by parang what angles people are finding. In this case, it's a very pleasant surprise that kind of even kids who were unemployed are able to get some kind of benefit out of this technology, and I think that's a really big deal. So that's kind of the reason why BloomX was designed to be a beginner-friendly, parang low transaction volume kind of product was primarily because of this use case. I want kind of normal people to be able to use it. And like, even if it's only 2,000 pesos at a time, like we will take that trade with BloomX. So that's kind of the goal with the product. Um, your other question was the like advice for
entrepreneurs. The
entrepreneurs.
main one really is
Yeah.
the the internal fortitude to get through all the challenges. It's always
Yeah.
challenging to be an entrepreneur.
It is. It is. I was so people you often ask me why I chose to be an entrepreneur over anything else. No, I could maybe be an engineer or maybe a full-time artist. I don't know. No, my problem has always been that I don't react well to authority. I, I tried the whole full-time job thing, no, for a couple of years. I tried being a freelance consultant for a couple of years also. In both situations, I wasn't super happy. I didn't like having a boss, or I didn't like having to parang basically build stuff for others. The thing that the area where I found myself most engaged was when I was creating things myself under my own kind of plans and using my own ideas and then trying to sell them to the world. No? And I guess to the world I really mean just the Philippine market. But parang that's where I found myself most engaged. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a good thing for if you're I mean, certainly it helps, no? Because so matigas yung ulo mo, you're stubborn. You've got some savings so that you can see yourself through that first year where your business is not doing well yet. All of that stuff helps. And obviously, if there's a way for you to sell your product before you build it, that's fucking great because sorry, my pardon my French, but like it helps a lot if you try to forecast how people are going to use this stuff before you make the commitment you're actually going to start doing this. Having personal savings is very important. All of those things, though. So all of those things are very important, but more than anything else, it's I feel like sometimes it's a question of timing. Um, is it the right time to be doing something like this, like what you're trying to push? So I'll tell you something very specific about Bloom. No, when Bloom did its Bloom Remittance product, it was the right place at the right time because we had instant users. Within the first week, we had at least a couple dozen customers using it already. Within the first month, it was a couple hundred customers using it already. So the timing was very good. Um, we are trying to recreate basically that same situation with the BloomX app, and that's why we're trying to kind of uh, stage the release in the way that we are. No? So we currently have about 5,000 people in our wait list. So they've indicated that they all want to use this stuff. And to us, these are strong numbers for the kind of product that we want to make, right? Because that means there's at least 5,000 people out there who will instantly use this as soon as I approve their
Absolutely.
account. So those types of indicators are very important to us because what we want to do is hit the ground running. As soon as you launch, you've got volume, you've got customers, you've got people who are asking you for maybe new features or things like that, or engaging with your product. And then if they like your product, they're writing about it. They're creating video tutorials about it. So that's what we're kind of trying to orchestrate right now. And we'll see at the end of this year whether or not we did it properly. But um, timing is really critical. The thing about the crypto market specifically is the timing is the window is so short because like the crypto summers are generally speaking 1:3 with the crypto winters. So what do I mean by that? If there is 1 year of crypto summer, you'll probably see about 3 years of crypto winter, where the market just goes cold. We've seen that three other times now. So it's no longer a thing that we actually put it in our planning now. Like obviously it's very hard to forecast exactly how long the winter is going to be. No, these are very loose numbers I'm throwing around, but we actually include that in our planning, in our 5-year plan. We include unexpected 2 to 3 year crypto winter. So what does that mean? We need to make sure that we can do as much as we can during the summer because we need to get to as many people as we possibly can. We need to grow as quickly as we can while things are warm so that when winter hits, we'll be ready. We'll survive it, right? I'll say one other really important thing
Yeah.
about crypto winters and crypto summers, and then I'll leave it at that. So the first crypto summer that most people will remember was 2013. That was the time that Bitcoin first hit $1,000. It started that year at $20. The second crypto summer that people remember is 2017. It started the year at $1,000 and it ended the year at 20. Now, in both of those crypto summers, two companies were created. In 2013, Coinbase was created. In 2017, Binance was created. So it is during these summers that the largest crypto companies in the world are formed. And that is why you need to move fast because historically speaking, you need to hit the ground running, form your strong foundations now, and then have enough dry powder or have enough parang capital, cash in the bank to tide you over when things go cold again. And then you go massively large during the next summer. No? So Coinbase is hitting the ground in 2021. They're IPOing. It's $100 billion valuation, things like that. No, and they started in 2013. So the timing in this industry is super critical. And that's why we really think that this is the right year to launch what we're doing. This is the right year to be focusing on this retail product for us.
So you guys will be the next Coinbase or Binance.
Well, I would be happy if we became the biggest crypto company in the Philippines. I think that's what we're aiming for sure. And we're working our butts off to make it happen. I don't know if we'll do it, but I can guarantee you that we will try our assets off to
Right.
make it happen.
And with that, man, I really enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll share this with you once it's uploaded. Buddy, thanks.
Thank you
And
so
I want to
much.
invite everyone to watch your broadcast on BloomX every Tuesday.
Yes, sure. So one of the things that we do for the community is we talk about crypto news for the Philippines the market. No, so it's a bilingual show. We speak in Taglish. We talk about news that is relevant to the average Pinoy crypto enthusiast. So it's called BloomCast. And if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see it every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. So we are fb.com/BloomXorg if you want us to watch the show. Thank you so much.
Always fun to watch. Luis Buenaventura the third. More blessings to you and congrats on all your businesses and thanks for paving the way.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.